Okay, today here in Goss's Garage, we're going to talk to Rick Robinson of American High Performance about some of the things that you should be looking for regarding cold air intakes. First, Rick, you own a high performance shop.
Yes, sir.
And you're located in Lorton, Virginia.
Yep, right off of I-95.
Okay. Now, the issue here with these, a lot of people don't really understand what a cold air system is. So here you have a stock system. What can you tell us about this?
This is a stock Airbox out of a Mustang. Now you can see it's a pretty good size box. The filter element goes inside here under the lid. This is the outlet going to the throttle body. But that horn right there is the air inlet. Mm-hmm. And where it's mounted in the car, that horn sticks out through an opening in the radiator frame into the area behind the grill, where it's actually getting cold air from the outside. So in reality, this in itself is, in fact, a cold air intake.
Right.
The only issue with it is the filter elements themselves tend to be somewhat restrictive. And this hole, of course, is a fixed size. It's not particularly large. And when you increase the power of cars and you're trying to pull more air in at high RPMs, that can become a restriction. Certainly the size of this outlet is a restriction as well. So those are the things we try to address when we're trying to upgrade an intake. But there's the right way and the wrong way to do it, too.
Okay, well, let's start out with the wrong way first. A lot of people, I guess they're trying to save money, but they go out and buy something like this, which, although they may call it a cold air kit, it's what? Hot air, warm air?
This was pretty much a hot air intake. Classic example of the early, quote, cold air intakes. You took all of that piping and the airbox and everything else, and even on the earlier Mustangs, they had that same design to them. They had a horn that went into the right-hand fender to pull cold air in from there. And they take all of that off and they put this on it. Just stick it straight onto the throttle body, and it's sitting right there over the top of the engine, pulling hot air in. Now, what's this notion of cold air, and why do we worry about that? One of when we increase the power of a motor, one of the things we always have to worry about is detonation. When you get too much compression, too much fuel in there, you get the spark too early, the motor will detonate, and it's very damaging to the engine. The other thing that will cause it to detonate is high heat, because the fuel air charge itself will explode before the spark plug even fires if it gets too hot.
Right.
So the computer is designed to control that, and it measures the inlet air temperature as it's coming into the engine's intake. And if it gets too hot, it starts to pull timing back to prevent that early detonation and that early spark, and it just takes the power away from the car.
So actually you can bolt one of these on, and although you save a couple bucks and it looks mighty cool, in reality you could cut your horsepower significantly.
Right. With the hood closed, going down the road, you're just pulling hot air in right off the engine.
Okay. All right. So let's get rid of this. And what do you have back here?
Let's go to this one. This is one of the next level upgrades from that. This one, you'll notice that it turns the corner. And what that does is that pipe actually goes through that hole I was talking about in the fender and puts that filter element, that high flow filter element, out into the fender where it's going to pull cold air in. So this one solves that problem of having the filter element right there in the engine compartment. The problem it adds to it, though, is this pretty chrome tube that looks so great sitting under the hood. The problem with that is that steel and aluminum, and you see these tubes made out of both, either steel or aluminum, stainless steel in some cases. This particular one is chrome steel. They have a high heat transmission factor. Their thermal conductivity is fairly high. So again, all of that heat from inside the engine compartment, and particularly since this is sitting right above the exhaust manifolds, is being pulled in through that steel tube right into the air charge coming through.
Yeah, one of the things that we see lots of times here in the shop is cars that come in. We see a lot of imports here in our shop, And one of the things they do is they put a kit like this on it, take all of the original stuff off, and because the engine is transverse mounted, front wheel drive on these little Civics and stuff like that, they hang the filter and the piping and everything across the front of the engine so it's right on top of the exhaust manifold. What a horrible idea.
It looks pretty though, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it looks gorgeous. Now, here we have something, this came off of one of my cars, and this is what I elected to use. This is composite, so it cuts down on the thermal conductivity.
Right. The thermal conductivity of high-density polyethylene, now this one particular one is composite, but it's probably similar to the high-density polyethylene, is 1/100th of the thermal conductivity of steel.
And the reason the conductivity is important is because if you cool the air over there, and then you can heat it in here. So you want, ideally, although this doesn't look very glamorous, it's
doing a much better job.
yeah. The other thing is, now, these don't apply to all cars, but on my car I had the choice of an open kit and one that was boxed in but it was open on the top, or one like this Corsa unit, which boxed the whole thing in so that it can't pull that much hot air.
Right. It follows the manufacturer's design for the Airbox, but as you can see, it's larger, so greater volume, more air that can pass through it, much larger filter element, a larger inlet and outlet for the Airbox, so more air can come through.
Well, this was something else that intrigued me with this particular kit. It came with this paper filter, this power core filter, and this is sealed around the sides, and the way this was positioned under the hood, this directs the airflow. It's very directional, and it only pulled air from right behind the headlight, where if I had used a cone type filter or something like that, it could have pulled hot air in from the sides.
Correct. And one of the other issues that we have with excuse me, intake designs, you notice this little thing right here. That's a mass air meter, as you know. This is what actually measures the amount of air that's coming in through the intake. It relies on good, stable, straight air going through over the measuring sensor itself. That's going to promote good, straight air coming in, because the way that's designed and the way the air has to go through those passages, it's coming straight out the back end of it and right down through that tube.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to selecting a good and a workable cold air kit than just does it look gorgeous.
And if I can take this apart and we can look down inside the inside of this real quick. Notice that screen right there?
Right.
That's not to catch bugs. That screen is actually there to help straighten out the airflow as well. So, because once that air goes through all those little openings, it kind of straightens itself out and gives you a nice smooth flow over the inlet. The other thing that can impact that is, particularly when these filters are left open to the engine compartment, is the fan. If it's in line with where the radiator fan is, and that fan's spinning and it's throwing air out to the sides as well, which are impacting on the filter element and disturbing the airflow going through the filter element, we've found that many cases where an engine is running rough, and sure enough, if we just move the filter elements to somewhere else, it smooths right out.
Interesting. All right. Well, Rick, I really appreciate you doing this. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
We're American High Performance in Lorton, Virginia, right off of I-95. Our website's AmericanHighPerformance.com, and you can reach us by telephone at 703-339-7412. We also have an online web store at AmericanHighPerformance.biz.